welcome to another Saturday morning Samoflange. I'm Matt, and today I'm going to go over the next superstar, movie star that I really like a lot, Ed Norton, and talk about his top 5 movies. But first, something I neglected to do on the last podcast, even though I did announce it on my YouTube channel. Folks, go check out Saga of Steve Rogers, podcast done by my good friend Tom. If you notice, there's been an improvement in the sound here, and that's because he kindly bought me some new podcasting equipment, which is going to make the podcast just sound so much better. I'm sure it already does now to you, but he's the reason why, so I just want to give him another shout out and say thank you, Tom. Thank you so much for that, my good friend. All right, so let's talk about Ed Norton here. Ed Norton has always been one of my favorite actors. It started a long time ago when I saw him in a movie that is going to be part of my top 5, so I'm not going to mention it right now. And then ever since then, whenever I saw him, I was like, oh, it's that guy from blank. And I'd always watch this movie. Well, then it got to be like, man, I love just about every movie he's in. And so it got to be where any movie he was going to be in, I would watch it. Now, he's been in some great ones. He's been in a few bad ones, just a few. Now, to my knowledge, Ed Norton doesn't get much work because I guess he's difficult to work with. That's what I've heard. Even though I do have a buddy of mine who has met Ed Norton and said that he is the nicest guy. He really is. He's a super smart guy. He reads a lot of books in his trailer and when he's doing a movie, and he will always talk to anyone. So supposedly, as a guy, he's pretty nice. As an actor, he's a method actor, and he really gets into his character. And supposedly, he argues with directors and is difficult to work with. That's what I've heard. And it's probably the reason why he doesn't get that many roles anymore. And that's sad, because I do think he is one of the best actors. I talked about how much I love Tom Cruise. I might love Ed Norton even more. He used to do a lot of stuff back in the day, and then it kind of dried up to where every once in a while he'll do something. Oddly enough, this Passion Project that came out, I believe it was last year, Motherless Brooklyn, is not that good. It's not that good. I know it was something he's been wanting to do for a while. And, he gave it his all in it, but it just wasn't that good. And that's just one of 2 movies that I've ever seen with him that just weren't that good. One was a direct-to-DVD one back in the 90s or early 2000s, I think, called Leaves of Green. He played twins. He played 2 sets, the same guy, just 2 different twins here. And that was kind of boring, too. That wasn't that good. Other than that, every other Edward Norton movie I have seen, either whether it's direct-to-video or, long-lost old, no-name movie to one of his big movies back in the 90s and 2000s, have been great. They've been super good. Now, I do kind of regret not going over all of the Tom Cruise movies. At least kind of mentioning them. And I'm not going to do it here for Ed Norton, but I do want to mention a few movies. Ed Norton, when I started finding out about him, I started watching everything. This is back in the day when Blockbuster was around. And you go to Blockbuster and say, hey, what movies has Ed Norton been in? Remember, they had their own database. And they tell you, okay, here's movies with Ed Norton. And then they tell you if they had it in stock or not and where it was, and you could go rent it out. And I did this all the time. I'd look and see. And at the time, this is mid-2000s again, Ed Norton was coming out with stuff direct on DVD. So that's where you could usually find him. Like, besides Leaves of Green, which was one of them, Down in the Valley was one. I remember I rented that with a bunch of my friends. They're like, Down in the Valley? Back in the day at Blockbuster, you would sit there and you'd go up and down the aisles for like an hour. You're like, dude, we could have watched half of a movie by now. And it pissed me off every time. Every time. And that you'd sit there for, about an hour or over an hour just trying to find one stinking movie to watch. So I said, let me go in there. I'll pick out one for us. Well, I already knew that Down in the Valley was coming out, so I got that one. It was Ed Norton. And they're like, okay, no one had heard of it. And everyone enjoyed it. That we had that was a good one. And then later on, they said, how do you know about that movie? Because it didn't come out in theaters. I was like, well, it had Ed Norton in it. And then they weren't around for the next one, but the next one I remember that I got direct to DVD was The Painted Veil. And he plays a doctor in South Africa or somewhere, or maybe in the Congos or whatever. And it was actually pretty good too. So he's come out with a lot of good stuff, and that's why I want to talk about him today. Now, let me go ahead and get to the honorable mentions first. I do have a lot of honorable mentions. First off, the ones that I've already mentioned, of course, are honorable: Painted Veil and Down the Valley. But I also like The Illusionist. That was a good one. It almost made my list too, because it is really good, but it didn't. There's another one that I really enjoyed. This is back in his heyday. He did The Score with Robert De Niro. It is a forgettable, 2000-esque flick where, Robert De Niro is still playing the crook who's going to pull off the perfect job. And Ed Norton's kind of the new kid who wants to be involved in it. And so he's showing Robert De Niro how awesome he is, how his acting, how he can fool anyone under disguise and stuff. And like I said, it's not like it was the best movie, but it was fun. It's fun. There's a scene at the end, and he goes, because he thinks he's outsmarted Robert De Niro, and Robert De Niro says, "All right, punk, what do you got? What do you got? Come on, punk, tell me what you got. What you got on me? What you got?" And it's a great line, even though it's very generic. And Norton goes, "You know what I got," and then he pauses because he realized something's up. And because I think Robert De Niro says, "You got nothing. That's what you got." And it's just, I don't know. Like I said, it's kind of like a 90s cheesy movie at times with these one-liners, but it's a really good one. The other ones, Rounders was an old one that was Matt Damon, where they were, I think, counting cards, and he was Matt Damon's buddy who was into card sharpening. That's a good one. It's been a while since I've seen that one. I'd like to see that one again. Red Dragon was one that almost made my list. Red Dragon I thought it was a pretty good prequel to Silence of the Lambs. You realize, I think by now the sequel had come out, and they had to get someone else because Jodie Foster didn't want to do it again. And so after the sequel came out, Hannibal, they did a prequel, Red Dragon. And, I thought it was good, especially when it had Ed Norton in it. But I thought it was a really good prequel. As prequels go, prequels are usually like, we stop caring now, let's just put whatever up there. But, of course, they got Anthony Hopkins back and Ed Norton to play the detective, which I thought was really strong. And like I said, maybe if I watch it again, I would put that in my top 5. But because it's been so long, it dropped out of the top 5 just barely. Another one that was up in there that I had to drop off because it's been a while since I've seen it, but I remember loving it, was 25th Hour. There's a man, he's about to go to jail, I think, for a long, long time. And so he's waiting till the last minute to, report in. And then, of course, there's the question if he's going to run or not, if he's going to jump bail or whatnot. And if I remember right, this was Spike Lee, too, if I remember. And it is just great. Again, it had been a while since I'd seen it, so I decided not to add it to my top 5. Between the two of these, Red Dragon probably made it closer, I guess, now that I think about it. But either way, though, those are ones that just barely missed out. Anyway, so there's just a few things I wanted to talk about there before I got to my top 5. I have seen every Ed Norton film, which is not that hard since he's not making that many films. And when I thought about his top 5, it wasn't a question of what they were; it's a question of how they were ranked, really. So, and the movie that got me started on him is definitely going to surprise you, I think. But anyway, let me go to number 5. Number 5 here is the Hulk. That's going to surprise a lot of people right there. I don't know if that many people liked Ed Norton's The Hulk. I absolutely loved it. What you don't remember is it was part of the MCU. He was supposed to be in the Avengers, have his own, ongoing movie series, and it was supposed to be Ed Norton and everything, and not whoever it came out to be. Now, the actor who plays him, I can't think of his name right now. I'm very bad with actors' names. But he's fine. He does a great job. But Ed Norton did it better. Ed Norton is perfect as Bruce Banner. Why? because he's got the physique. Ed Norton is a scrawny little dude, and that's who Bruce Banner is. He's scrawny. One of my problems, when even though I do like the new Bruce Banner in the Marvel series, he's great, but he doesn't look like a nerd. He doesn't look nerdy. He looks kind of buff a little bit, but whereas Ed Norton looks scrawny and little, and I think Bruce Banner should look scrawny and little. Either way, he had the look and he had the attitude down. And the movie is just a joy. If you remember a long time ago, Ang Lee did the Hulk, and it was horrible, awful. If you know, I do another podcast with my best friend Bruce. Bruce is a huge, huge Hulk fan, and we went and saw the very first Ang Lee Hulk movie. And I remember after it was over, I looked at him. I went, "That sucked." He went, "It's okay, it's okay." He didn't want to say it sucks. Bruce never says a movie sucks. Very rarely, I should say, does he say a movie sucks. But he just wanted to talk. He was so happy to see Hulk. That's all he cared about. But the movie was really bad. And then later on, I got him to admit that when we went back and watched the, at that time, new Hulk movie with Ed Norton. Now, I was very impressed because, A, I knew Ed Norton was going to be great, but I just thought the movie was just well done. It was well done. And my buddy Bruce did too. And he finally was admitting that the Ang Lee one wasn't that good. And he started giving the reasons why. And they were all pathetic reasons. The reason was, he said, well, they didn't make Hulk tall enough, or he was too green, or his look was off. And I was like, no, the movie sucked. The Ang Lee movie sucked. But that Marvel MCU one, and this is the one that gets forgotten a lot. People don't even realize that that's part of the MCU. But I think Iron Man shows up. Tony Stark shows up at the end with, oh gosh, is it, no, the General. I think. The General from the movie. I think that's what it is. But there's even like a little, stinger at the end saying, he's trying to build together a team and whatnot. And it's interesting because originally it was supposed to be Ed Norton. Now, Ed Norton had issues with Avengers. He wanted to be able to write his own character because he's a dedicated actor. But this is where I guess his name comes with him about him being kind of hard to work with. And Marvel's like, no, man, we're not going to let you write Bruce Banner. You got to go with the script you see here. And he was like, nah, I'm out. Because he doesn't really need big franchise movies. That's not how Ed Norton does. He's a man who likes to do his own thing. And so it wasn't that saying goodbye to the money was hard. It was just, I want to do it my way or I don't want to do it. Someone else can do it. And I mean, he was fine. I don't think he rage quit or anything. And then they brought someone else in. Now, I was super disappointed when I heard that. Super disappointed. Because, oh no, Ed Norton's great. Who can replace him? The guy they got was fine. But, is he Ed Norton? No, he is not. If it's been a while since you've checked out the Ed Norton Hulk, then I highly recommend you try it out. Because I think it is just a joy. It still holds up as a really good film. And it's sad. I don't know why we didn't get, 2 more Hulk films. I don't know. I'm sure someone out there knows because y'all are big into Marvel and everything. But because I remember the new contract, he just signed on to do guest appearances on other movies. So I don't know. Maybe that's because if there were going to be any single movies, it had to be Ed Norton. I'm guessing. And they didn't want to have 2 Hulks going on. So maybe that's the reason. But either way, we only got one. Well, besides the awful Hulk movie, we only got one Hulk MCU movie, and that was the first time they ever replaced a superhero too. And it's funny because now no one knows that is part of the MCU, that Hulk. All right, so let's move on to number 4. Number 4, I just recently watched again. I watched it earlier this year. I remember loving it, and I said, you know what? I feel like watching a movie. I didn't know what to watch, and then I saw number 4, Death to Smooches, was on streaming. I was like, oh, I got to see this movie again. Death to Smooches is an old mid-2000 kind of dark comedy starring Robin Williams and Ed Norton. It's about a daytime kids show host. Robin Williams is a guy, I can't remember his name, but he's all in rainbows. He's Rainbow Ralph or something, and he's so happy. He's great with kids, and something happens that ruins his career. I mean, just really deep sixes his career. He gets caught in a scandal. I think he's charging kids to be on his show or whatnot. So anyway, the scandal happens, and then Robin Williams' character is banned forever from children's TV. Well, they need to find someone to replace him. Well, along comes Edward Norton, who has created a character called Smooches. And Smooches is the most stupidest idea ever. I mean, the guy is all about he's a vegan. He's a, it's making fun of the PC culture and the oversensitive culture before they even were a thing. When they were like a small, laughable minority. Ed Norton starts making fun of them in this movie, and it is hilarious. It is hilarious. I want to tell you about my funniest scene in the movie, but I really want you to see it. There's one where he's giving out cookies, and what happened is, now Ed Norton takes over the daytime show, the kids show, and he gets super popular. But of course, people want to change his programming, and he has his own vision. But they don't care. They just want to rake in money or whatnot, and do merchandising and everything like that. So it's great. It's a great movie. But Robin Williams is trying to destroy Smooch's career. He hates Smooches, and that's why he wants to kill Ed Norton, because Robin Williams is a little bit off his rocker. And so they go back and forth. They have big competitions. It's just great. Ed Norton, this is one of his finest characters. You don't see him do too many characters like this one, and this is a really good one. Robin Williams, dead on. He's always great at this. Anyway, the scene that I was talking about involves cookies. Robin Williams makes some adult-oriented cookies and puts them in Smooch's cookie bag on live TV. Smooches pulls out one of them. You know where this is going. And then he has to turn it in. He has to just roll with it live on the air. It is still the most hilarious, one of the most hilarious scenes in movie history for me. I remember watching that. I watched this movie when it came out in theaters. I don't think it made much money in theaters. But I watched it because, of course, it had Edward Norton in it, so I had to watch it. I guffawed. I laughed so hard at that scene. Again, it's kind of a dark comedy. It's not supposed to be a comedy. It's a dark comedy in a way. There's funny moments in it, but it's just a great story. And I was having a blast watching that movie, and it was so much fun. Like I said, I watched it again earlier this year and absolutely love it. So, Death to Smooches. I know it sounds really stupid, but it is a great film, and Edward Norton's fourth best film. All right, my number 3 is Not for the Light of Heart. This one's called American History X. This one deals with some pretty serious matters. I mean, this Edward Norton is a guy who is free from prison. He used to be a skinhead, a racist skinhead, who's basically had a change of heart over the years. Now, he is renowned for being, the biggest badass his town has ever seen. And his brother, who is played by Edward Furlong from Terminator 2, is in this. And it is great because his brother wants to be just like Ed Norton. And he's growing into that type of person. But Ed Norton doesn't want him to be that way. In fact, Ed Norton doesn't even want to be part of his real life. He's realized the errors of his ways, and he wants to, set his little brother straight. It is so impactful. There's a great scene at the beginning. I gotta say it because if you watch it, you may want to turn your head. And I can't remember if they show it. I can't remember, but either way, I remember I cringe every time I think about it. He is teaching someone a lesson. Ed Norton is. I think this is before he goes to jail. They have a scene. And he has a guy, he said, bend over. And he said, get on your hands and knees. Get on your stomach, whatever. He just bite the curb. And they're like, oh, no. He's like, bite the curb. And so he shows the guy. And he has his teeth on the concrete curb. You know what's going to happen here. This is brutal. And so what Ed Norton does is just crush the back of his head into that curb, crushing his teeth. I don't know if he killed him or not. Definitely just brutally hurt him. It is, again, if they don't show it or not, I can't remember. All I can think of is I get the heebie-jeebies whenever I think of that scene. It really, like, oh, it is a pretty impactful scene. It happens at the beginning, so this is not really spoilers. But I mean, bite the curb, man. When I see that, I saw this movie with my brothers, and whenever I say bite the curb, they all go, oh, we kind of laugh it off because you know where that scene's from, and no, you don't want to bite the curb. You don't want to bite the curb. I mean, I almost at that point be like, you know what? Why don't you go ahead and just shoot me dead? I know I'll probably live if I bite the curb and you slam your, foot down on the back of my neck. I'll probably live. I'll be in a lot of pain. I'll have to get dentures for the rest of my life. But go ahead and shoot me. Go ahead and shoot me. I'm not going to bite the curb. That's just too much for me, man. But this is just a wonderful, wonderful, not happy. It sounds like I'm saying it's wonderful, happy. It ain't a wonderful, happy film, but it's just a great film. It's a great film. Of course it is. Obviously, it's in my top 5, right? But yeah, if you want to look at a movie that, like I said, all of these are showing the bit. You have the action star from the Hulk. Then I'm showing you the kind of comedic. It's more of a dark comedy in Death to Smooches. And then here he is in just a dark, serious drama now called American History X, which is great. And to be honest, that's what number 2 is too. Let me go ahead and get to it. This is the movie that got me hooked on Edward Norton. And no, it's not the one you're thinking about. It's Primal Fear. Primal Fear was a mid-90s, I think the word is thriller, starring Richard Gere. Richard Gere. I remember we rented this when I was in college with my roommates, and we watched it. And a young Ed Norton, Ed Norton's playing the altar boy. He's not a boy, but he looks young, like he's in his teens or whatnot, or early 20s. And Ed Norton is phenomenal. It's probably one of his best characters he's ever done, because he's playing an altar boy who's weak, insufficient, or whatnot, and Richard Gere, and he's murdered this priest. And so Richard Gere is trying to defend him, and he finds out very quickly, these aren't spoilers, that the altar boy actually has been abused by the priest, which is why the altar boy did it. But also, the altar boy has been pressed. He's kind of gone insane with split personalities. There is a twist at the end of this movie that just blows your friggin' socks off. It's so good. And the acting by Ed Norton is so good. That's when I said, who is this guy? I need to watch every movie he's ever made, because that was just, it's his best role he's ever done. Anyway, I remember we watched it, and I'm going to tell some of the story here. I don't want to ruin anything. But what happens is Richard Gere is walking away, the music stops, then gets into this, what's it called? It starts building up, the music starts building up, like a realization is hitting him, and his eyes go big and whatnot, and then that's when you, as the viewer, also realize what just happened. And I remember when that hit, Richard Gere's character realizes something, and then you realize it too. You're like, oh my gosh. And I remember I looked at my roommate. I had 2 roommates at the time. I looked at one of my roommates. He looked at me, Bruce, from Princeton Universe podcast. We looked at each other and went, no friggin' way. We were floored. My 3rd roommate had no idea what was going on. He's like, what? Oh no, he left the jail cell open. He was just totally off. And we just started laughing. I was like, Roger, do you not know what just happened? And he's like, no, what? And we had to, later on, I think it revealed what was going on, but he had no idea. And it was hilarious because he was totally clueless with the big reveal. And I remember thinking, because I didn't want to see this movie because, Richard Gere, come on, get out of here. What was his name? He wasn't Dr. McDreamy, but he was. He was every girl's big crush back in the 90s. They wanted Richard Gere. That was back when gray was the way, right? When you had gray hair like Richard Gere, you could get all the chicks. And for that reason alone, I didn't want to watch the movie. But I can't remember who had actually wanted to watch this. Either way, though, I was so impressed with the movie. This is another one I saw probably about a year ago. It still holds up. Still holds up today. It's just such a great movie, and if you haven't seen it, you need to. Now, of course, I'm talking about, promoting all these movies, suggesting you watch all of them. But hey, that's because they're good movies. All right, so number one is no surprise to anyone. It's probably everyone else's favorite number one movie, especially with Ed Norton in it. Fight Club. Of course, I saw Fight Club when it came out, all those many years ago. I thought it was brilliant. It also has another twist at the end, which is really nice, about Tyler Durden. My brother thinks this is Brad Pitt's best movie ever. And although I can't say that it is for sure, it is honestly one of Brad Pitt's better movies he's ever made. But anyway, it is just an amazing film. I don't think I have to talk about this because everyone kind of knows it. The soundtrack for Fight Club was pretty good too. I used to play that all the time as a kid. I can't remember their name. I think they're the Pixies. They sing that song at the end when, the whole city's kind of blowing up. And I always liked that song. I thought, wow, the Pixies, right? They should be good. Megan took me to a Weezer concert a few years ago for my birthday, and the Pixies were opening up. I was like, oh, shut up. The Pixies, yeah, they had the big song from Fight Club. I said, I've always wanted to listen to them. Oh, the Pixies suck. They're an awful band. And, of course, at the end of their set, they played that Fight Club song. That's the only good song they've ever written. The only good song you've heard it. You ever hear those one-hit wonders? You think, hey, I wonder if they made any other good music. No, not when it's the Pixies. Pixies made one good song, and that was it. Everything else they made, garbage. Garbage. But Fight Club song, good. So Fight Club as a whole, obviously, is a really good movie. Everyone remembers Meatloaf, which I never even knew that was Meatloaf. By the way, who was in that? I hated Meatloaf. I still don't like Meatloaf's music. I've always hated Meatloaf. And not the food. Love the food. Love me some Meatloaf. Hate the singer. But he was great in that movie. Everyone was great in that movie. It's just such a strong, powerful movie. And obviously, yes, it is probably Ed Norton's most well-known movie, but it's also one of his best movies, too. I have to hand it to you. I kind of wanted to put Primal Fear as number one because I think that's his best role. But as movies go overall, it's got to be Fight Club. It's got to be Fight Club. I mean, and Fight Club is so quotable for today. Who wanted to start their own Fight Club? I'll be honest. When Fight Club came out, there was a lot of these backyard brawls that were going on back in the day. I actually went to a Fight Club once. This is a funny story. I'll tell this one. Megan knows the story now because I ran into a guy who verified the story. Because I wasn't going to say it because no one's going to believe this would ever happen. But I went to a Fight Club. I didn't know it was going to be a Fight Club. It was. And they brought together a Marine. He'd just gotten, off of his duty, his little tour of duty. He was home. This was his welcome home project. He loved Fight Club. And so he wanted to have his own Fight Club. Well, he's a Marine, right? So he can fight anyone. Well, he found an old boxer, and he invited him. He found a black belt in Taekwondo and invited him. And then he was trying to find a fourth person so they could have, a tournament of fights. So, two people would fight two people, and then those two people would fight for the championship. And what had happened was I was a year or so out of college by then, and I had been featured in a newspaper, in the local college newspaper, about a year or two ago, as a karate champion. It was incorrect. It was a misprint. What had happened was I was practicing with the karate team who had won state, and they were all posing with the trophy. Well, what I did is me and my buddy who was on the karate team, he was on the karate team. I was just practicing with him, and I wasn't on the team yet. I was taking a class with Bob Allen, who was running the team. But he invited me to his karate team because he was in high hopes that I would join the karate team because I guess I was okay. And I remember an Oriental kid called Toe, and me and Toe would always scrap. I mean, all day long, during during the lessons, he'd just have us kind of wrestle and grapple and stuff like that. And I mean, Toe was really good, and I was really tall. We bounced each other out, but Toe was really good. Anyway, so I said, hey, Toe, let's get a picture with that trophy. And so we did. We took the trophy, and we, held our hands apart like we were going to fight each other, like we were fighting over the trophy, having the trophy in the middle. And we posed for it, and I took the picture with my camera. Well, so did the campus news people who were there. They were taking pictures of the team. Well, they saw me taking that picture with Toe, and they snapped a picture. Well, they loved it so much, the editor made it the front page of their paper when it said, ULM's karate team takes first place in state. And it had me and Toe holding the trophy, fighting each other, with their fist up at each other, because we had a dramatic pose going on. I got so much heat from the karate team. I could not join the karate team after that. I mean, Bob Allen felt bad for me. He felt bad because he knew I wasn't trying to steal anyone's glory, but the whole team, out of all the pictures, they chose one with some kid who wasn't on their team, who was holding the trophy. I know they were mad. I understand that, but I remember I didn't get to be on the team because they were pissed at me. They were pissed. I didn't go to practice anymore, and basically just ruined my relationship with all those guys. And I really hated that because it was just an honest mistake. I meant to take the picture by myself or with my buddy Toe just to clown around. I had no idea the local college news people were going to take that picture. Anyway, so what had happened is my buddy had heard about this. He'd seen the picture. Someone, maybe his mom or sister who went to college at the time, had kept it and says, hey, Matt won state he's on the karate team. He said, okay, great. So he invited me. So I didn't know that was the reason I was invited to the fight club. And then I find out that there's a fight club going on, and he said, hey, yeah, blah, 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 blah. Everyone get ready for the fight club. And after the party, I was like, oh, shut up. They're going to be fighting? All right. And then the Taekwondo kid comes up to me and said, hey, he said, I look forward, he said, hey, good luck. I went, yeah. I said, you too, man. I said, wait, good luck for what? He went, well, we're fighting. We're on the first card. Now, I'm sorry, what? He said, it's you versus me. He said, I was like, wait a minute. I went to go see my buddy Mac. I said, hey, Mac, what's going on here? He's like, oh, dude. He said, yeah, you're going to be fighting him for the. I said, no, I'm not. And then I kind of was telling him, no, this is all a mistake. And you took karate, right? I said, yeah, but I'm a white belt. I said, this kid will wipe the floor with me. He goes, no, it'll be fine. And so I'm telling the kid, I'm like, look, I got to work in the morning. Don't hit me in the face. I'm like, oh, my, I'm just going to. When I was serious, I felt sick in my stomach. I said, look, this is going to be quick. You hold me, I'm going to tap out, all right? He's like, oh, okay, all right. And so we got there, and the guy's name is David. He's a really good guy. He's a good friend of mine now. And he's a smaller guy. And so when we went up to fight, I shook hands and went, hey, no hard feelings, right? If I just flopped, right? He went, oh, no, none at all. And he shook my hand. Well, then, I don't know why, but I pulled him into a bear hug and just fell on top of him. And because I weighed more than he did, I won. Because he struggled. I just buried myself on top of him and just pinned him down. It was cheap. It was a cheap move. I tripped him because he wasn't expecting it. Because the fight had kind of started, but I just was going the whole time I was going, dude, I did not want to fight. I'm just going to lay down. And so I shook his hand and said, do you mind if I lay down? Yeah. And then I just trapped him. It was a total chicken move, okay? And he should be pissed at me through eternity, but he's not. In fact, he told my wife that it was a very smart move, and that regardless of whether I meant to do it or not, or, he's supposed to, as a black belt, he's supposed to be always aware. He said, Matt caught me unaware. He had me lower my guard. He said he taught me a good lesson, and he's not mad at all that he did not, go to the championship, or the next round. But he's just such a great guy. He ran the putt-putt place in town. He gave me and my wife free putt-putt because he remembered me from that tournament, and he's just such a great guy. I can't talk good enough about David. Anyway, my wife's like, wait, what fight club? I said, I'll tell you later. It wasn't that big of a story. Because I was a fight club champion. That's right. Because the next fight, the Marine and the boxer, man, those guys went at it. I mean, they were doing it. They were fighting for a whole hour. Finally, when it was over, they're both gassed. The Marine had won. But I was like, dude, I said, look, if you want to stop the fight and just we'll come back next week and finish this. I was like, I'm never coming back here again. I was like, I'm Splitsville, dude. I'm never coming back here. But I kept telling him, let's wait till next week till you're better. He went, No, 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 man. We go all the way. This is Fight Club. And I was like, you know what? Take another 5 minutes, I said, take another 5 minutes. Think about it. Because I was like, I do not want to fight this dude. I do not want to fight this dude. He was not going to let me quit. And so finally, he said, no, let's do it. Well, he was still worn out. I mean, he could hardly stand. They'd been going at it for so long. So guess what I did? I did the same thing. I took him in, I took a bear hugged him and slammed on top of him, and he couldn't get off me because he was too weak, and I ended up winning. And he's like, okay. He said, you won, and he gave me it was the stupidest, win ever. Both wins were just so lame, but I got the title of being the first Fight Club champion at his little fight club. He said, but you got to promise me you'll come back next month to defend your title. I said, oh, definitely. I never spoke to him again. Never. I took his name out of my phone. I got a new number. I swear to you, I changed everything. I wanted to avoid him like the plague. I said, I'm never coming back. Never coming back. Now, thankfully, he'd been away for a while. He didn't know where I lived because I had moved apartments. So he couldn't get a hold of me after that. And years later, when I finally got a hold of him, he said, hey, man, did you move away? I was like, oh, well, I moved back to Monroe. He said, West Monroe. He said, oh, yeah. He said, I lost touch with you for a while. I was like, yeah, I know. He doesn't seem crazy anymore, but yeah, that's my Fight Club story. Yeah, so I won a Fight Club and didn't have to do anything. Anyway, though, hey, kind of gone long enough. All right, folks, well, that's all that I have for now. Hey, what is your favorite Ed Norton films? Or do you even know who he was? Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you next time on more Saturday Morning Samoflange.